Welcome everyone to Tony and Tina's Wedding, Creating a Theater Tribe. I'm one of your hosts, Larry Pellegrini, and I had the joy, the terror, and the absolute privilege of being the original director of this beautiful, unruly, impossible show.
I'm Gret Gonzalez. I worked as an actor and assistant director on the Las Vegas production, where the weddings were loud, the audiences were very committed to the party, and no two nights were ever the same.
And I'm Christy Patti. I was a stage manager on the New York City production, which means I've called cues while dodging flying breadsticks and generally keeping people out of jail.
This podcast is our love letter to Tony and Tina's Wedding, a show that didn't just break the fourth wall, it pretended the wall never existed.
It was immersive before immersive was a buzzword. You didn't just watch it, you ate, you danced, you picked sides, and suddenly you were a part of the family.
And whether you were on stage, backstage, or sitting at table 12 wondering why the bride's cousin was yelling at you, you were in it together.
This show created a tribe, artists who learned to trust each other, audiences who came back again and again, and a community that stretched far beyond a single performance.
In each episode of this podcast, we'll be talking to the people who created it and to the people who continue to make it happen today. Actors, directors, designers, stage managers, the folks who keep this wedding running even when everything goes off the rails.
And for our very first episode, we knew we had to start at the beginning.
Today we are honored to welcome the woman who created Tony and Tina's Wedding, the original Tina herself, the incomparable Nancy Cassaro.
Nancy created a world that invited audiences inside and trusted them to play along.
And joining her is the original Barry Wheeler, Mark Campbell, a performance so iconic, it set the tone for every Barry who followed. No pressure.
Together, Nancy and Mark helped redefine what theater could be: personal, participatory, and joyfully unpredictable.
We'll talk about how it all began, what surprised them the most, and how a scrappy idea turned into a theatrical phenomenon.
And maybe a few stories we were never supposed to tell.
So take your seat,
grab a drink,
and remember, you're family now.
How long is this, Larry? How long are we doing this?
This is going to be 6 hours. Until you're boring, okay? I am absolutely thrilled to have these two guests on our show today, and we have Nancy Cassaro Fracciola and we have Mark Campbell, and these two people have been in my life for many, many years and are both very precious to me. They were there at the very beginning of Tony and Tina, Mark and Nancy, so we want to hear what it was like at the tip-top beginning.
Nancy, you are the one that got impregnated with this idea.
Yeah, but I mean, it wouldn't have happened without you that summer, Mark. Yeah, so, I mean, I've said this story so many times, I am sick of hearing myself saying it, but like I had gone to 4 weddings in 2 weekends. And the second weekend, it was actually my friend Barbara Herzog who really inspired a lot of Tina out of me. At her wedding, she literally was in the bathroom. Someone was holding her veil and she was doing a giant line in the bathroom. And then like 5 minutes later, she was dancing to Daddy's Little Girl with her dad and grinding her teeth. It was just crazy. But Barbara was awesome. She just passed away, sadly, but she was a very big inspiration for me, for Tina. Anyway, so I was just really struck, especially the second weekend, because it was at the same wedding venue, the Swan Club on Long Island, in the same room with the same band on a Friday and then another wedding on the Saturday. So I took a theatrical styles class in college with this great professor, Richard Mason at Hofstra. And I just was kind of interested in that idea of rites and rituals and that idea. And so I just sort of went like, that could be cool. And I met with David Kaplan, who a lot of us, that's how I met Mark, right? Mark, I met you and David.
Yep.
A lot of people in David Kaplan's class down in Soho. And we would go out after class and just kind of knock around ideas. That's how I met Larry at Jason's, doing little sort of weird performance arty comedy pieces.
Yes.
And I met with David Kaplan. I said, I have this idea about an Italian wedding. And he's like, do it. just do it. So, we started knocking it around. And I remember asking a lot of people. I actually asked my husband, Chris, to play Tony in the original production. And he was like, a lot of people didn't get it. Like a lot of people were like, what is it? Like the audience is part of it. So those first people that really stood by the show, some of them, the only production they did was the original production. I just have a lot of gratitude to them because they really stuck with it, And then I met Mark. Well, Mark and I were in college together, Mark Nasser and I, and we just always did great improv together. I remember the first improv I did with him, and we were in Dr. Tulin's class, and we just would crack each other up. So we had a great rapport. And initially, I thought he could play my brother, but then when Chris said no, I was like, Mark, want to be the groom? And so that's kind of how that all began. So I worked at BBDO in Manhattan on, it was like 47th, right, Mark? 47th in Madison.
Yeah, Midtown
And Mark,
on the east side.
yeah, and Mark used to work as a waiter in the Waldorf Astoria at some like high-end bank thing. And he used to come over to BBDO after his lunch shift. And he's like, it's like Cassaro Productions in here. Because I was just constantly wheeling and dealing with trying to get free stuff for the first show. So it was really fun. It was a very fun time. But Mark and I met because we invited a group of people to come and help us kind of formulate the original timeline. I think Liz came to a couple, but it fell off. And it was pretty much really hot in my apartment that summer. And we just kind of pounded out a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then maxed out our credit cards once we had gotten the space, which that was a whole story in and of itself, getting the spaces the first time. Because I couldn't get a church the first time around. So
what do you have, Mark?
That's the
What is Mark
timeline.
showing us?
Oh my God, Mark,
You
I
cannot
lost all
believe
that.
all the. I have it all.
Wow.
I am.
Wow.
Thank God I'm a hoarder.
Oh, Mark, I would
I
love
have
a copy of
everything.
that.
I can't believe it. But there it is.
Oh my
That's
Love
what
that.
I typed this out at Citibank.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm
Wow.
sorry, Nancy. I didn't want to. I'm sorry.
No, go for it. 'Cause you're reminding me because I lost all that stuff in the fire. So I don't have,
Yeah.
I used to have this little black and white composition book, and I remember I drew out like the
Oh, I
wedding.
remember that book.
Remember that book? And so and then I
Oh,
wrote
yeah.
on the back pages, it would be like trying to get people to buy tickets. And oh my gosh. Yeah. So we did the ceremony at 62 Mercer Street.
Yeah, down in Soho.
It was in Soho, this artist loft. And we decided to make it like a storefront church. Remember Jack Friss, rest his soul. Jack Friss, we were just laughing so hard because there was a whole movement in the Catholic Church in the 70s that was very much like, take our bread. And so we just made those banners to put up in that place. Oh, it was so fun.
Oh, that's right.
Remember all that?
Oh, yeah.
And then the Allegiant Hall, the way we got them to let us do it was that they were allowed to stay and drink at the bar. But I said, look, it's going to be a wedding on 2 nights in a row and you can't act like it's a play. And they got into it. But that was so crazy.
That's the very first cast list.
Oh my God.
And I
Mark.
typed this out at Citibank. I'll tell you about that job in a minute. And here's the very first, here's our contact sheet.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot believe I did this, but that's the kind of fellow I am.
So,
But I have the very first program from the 2 days.
wow.
Here, there's the very first
Oh
program.
my God, Mark. Oh, I would
Wow.
love
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
What was
it's
the
so
response
great.
like in those very first shows that you did for an audience? Did they
I
get it?
I think they really liked it.
Yeah.
And remember, Mark, I just got people to give us stuff for free. And I got
Oh,
like,
yeah.
remember that guy that I got to print wedding invitations?
Amazing.
Yes.
Remember that? And he was on like 48th. I'm sure long gone. He was this old Jewish man. And I was like, I need this. And so he made wedding invitations. And then I just sent them out to everybody that I admired. Like I remember sending it to Mike Nichols and Liza Minnelli and Robin Williams and all these people all over New York. But they looked like there was a response
Yeah.
call. And
Brilliant.
like I remember when Liza
Brilliant.
Minnelli was married to the sculptor Mark Giraud, and she like signed, Mr. Can't kisses, like she knew who we were. And then the big thing that was like, I mean, and I'll never forget this, but it was the Sunday, the second show. And so I don't know if we did a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. It was November. Oh my God, is it November 8th and 9th, Mark?
Oh, there it is.
This is a letter that Nancy, you composed. How you doing? So he proposed us the other night at Pizza Cove. Can you friggin' believe it? That's how it starts.
Oh my God.
And then our names are at the bottom, our contact. We're trying to just get this thing. This is the original, Nancy. You glued on these little things down
Oh
here.
my God, Mark.
Oh my God.
And then we used your copier at your work, used the city court because they could afford it. And, I don't know who typed this up. I don't think I did. But there's the original. I was like, whoa, that's the original. Then I have copies. But originally we did it on the 9th and 10th of November, 1985.
Okay, so you were meeting that summer at your apartment. Liz fell off. It was very hot. But were you talking about creating the initial timeline at that point?
Well, if I could, I just want to talk about the origins of my interest in this. Nancy, we go to this bar, I think it was on Prince Street. We drink a few beers and we just make each other laugh. And then Nancy pitched the idea. And I remember everybody who was there going, what? No. Yeah, and I was like, I don't know about that. I don't think we could pull that off. It was like, I went home and it was like in bed. I'm like, I can't sleep. Oh, what's bothering me? And then 2 nights, I think I just couldn't. I'm like, all I could think about is maybe we could do that. If we could, that'd be really awesome. And I called her a couple of days later and I said, Nancy, I cannot get it out of my mind. I said, I don't know what it's going to take, but let's do it. And she was like, okay. And that's where it started. So skipping to, we would do these improvs at, I think, somebody's apartment on the Upper West Side. We did a couple of them. That's where I came up with Barry Wheeler. I wasn't even supposed to be in it because I was going to direct it.
Maybe Moira's?
Maybe Moira's. Might have been Moira's. It was kind of big. And I remember it was like we were all just hanging out. And,
Yeah.
but I think it was Moira's place. And that's where Barry came up. But then, as Nancy said, okay, we're going to meet at Nancy's for this meeting and we're going to talk about how to make this happen. And as she said, at the beginning, there were few people who came,
Yeah.
but over time, I'd show up and Nancy would have these chairs in this little bedroom she had. And I think you were actually sharing that bedroom with somebody else. And you ushered your roommate out and we'd sit there and nobody would come. And then we'd start messing around. Hey, James, what do you think about this idea? Oh, you do? You like that? Okay. How about you, Jack? Everybody was supposed to be there. Sorry, I'm ratting people out. But it was just Nancy and me. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's just do it. And that's where we came up with this idea for the timeline. I can't take any credit for this. Nancy had ideas from what she'd seen, about like things that happened. So we started to form a kind of a story arc using that because we had no script and we didn't want to script it. We knew things like when they got married, there'd have to be a script for the priest. There'd have to be toasts and this and that. But, just what is going to happen? And ultimately, the tension is this marriage even going to last to the end of the reception? Because of all the tensions. And that created something to drive it forward. But then all these characters had to have like their own story arcs. And Nancy came to me like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I can't remember. We kept waiting for this best man to show up at rehearsal. There was supposed to be some friend of Nasser's.
Oh.
Well, the guy wasn't showing up. And I'm like, Nancy, and we had people coming up to me. Hey, I'm done. I don't get this. I don't think it's going to
Or
work.
I have to work. Remember the guy, Andrew, the guy who played Nunzio, and he's like, yeah, I can't do the show tomorrow. It's like, what? You can't do
What do you
the
mean?
show.
Yes, like, come on.
It was
Yeah.
crazy.
And you just left. You just didn't show up.
And then we'd be at rehearsal, Mark. Remember like rehearsing at our studios? No, it wasn't our studios. It was at the Mercer.
That loft.
that loft, and we'd be doing like the circle dance, and it'd just be all of us. And I just remember them looking around, and you'd call out the next, because I was into tableaus. Remember that? I was like David Kaplan tableaus. So we would do a tableau, and then we'd like, okay, now this song's playing, and then you're gonna go here. And we had no idea if this was gonna work, like none. And I remember doing the first performance. I remember that Tina was upstairs because it was an artist loft. So I had to walk down a thing of
Right.
and then I remember being up there and watching Sue Varon walk down the aisle to Barbara Streisand singing Ave Maria, and people kind of cracking up. And I'm like, this could work. And then when I came down the aisle, they had put white streamers around this banister, and I am not good with heights. And so I really was scared. But as I was walking down, my hand was on the banister and I was ripping all of the white. Remember that, Mark?
I remember that.
And I was like, oh, this is a good bit. I'm going to do this. And it just like people knew how to be, like they knew how to do it. And then we went from there. So there we were in the East Village and went all the way to the west side to 14th Street to the American Legion Hall for the reception.
Wow.
Right.
It was
Right.
crazy.
Nancy knew things like, hey, grandma's going to fall. Okay, well, that's a big moment. Okay, that's going to happen. And then there's going to be the first dance by the bridesmaids, another big moment, you know, things that would, okay. And we started to get the idea, Nancy alluded to it, that the music would be the cues. That,
Music or
that's
speech.
it. And
Yeah, or
Larry, you
speech.
perfected that. You
Yeah.
perfected that. You said it's all about what song is
Sure.
playing. Where do you need to be when that song is playing? And that created a real good structure for the whole thing to just become what it became. And then, of course, we had to scale it down to make it manageable running time. But I didn't know what to do. Nancy goes, you're going to have to play the best man. And I'm like, wait, whoa, I'm directing this. I'm putting my money in this. Nancy, you know, we're still writing this on its feet. Nancy, if you hadn't been so like, you know, never would have gotten done. She says, I don't care. You're going to do it. And I was like, okay, she's the boss. I got to do it. And the only thing I spent on those first two productions was walking around to every actor. Okay, you know, hey, man, hey, get your ass over by the bandstand. This is where grandma starts to fall. Okay, that kind of thing. That's all I did. I didn't really have a character. I mean, other
want you
than
to know that
directing the play
continues.
as the character.
That continues to this day. So people still whisper
Yeah.
in your ear if you don't know where you're going. People are still walking around being like, hey, grandma's going to fall. You should probably head that way. You know, like,
Yeah, right.
so it's
Let me buy you a
still
drink
is
over
very
this
funny.
way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Come here, I want to show
Right.
you something.
Once the cast settled, I mean, that was one of the biggest issues. Every week, you know, it's like, who's playing what?
Yeah.
And finally, we got the cast settled enough to kind of run it.
Yeah.
Well, over time, it was really
And-
the opening
and
when
I think-
Larry was directing in '88
Yeah.
that made it like, okay. And once you ran it, it just became like this machine. And I mean, a great machine, beautiful machine. It was
Yeah,
like the first year and a half, it was a
Yeah.
work of art. I mean, I felt like I am so proud of this.
Mhm.
People would come and just, Joe Corkin, the first producer of the long run, he came to me and said, hey, because I was line producing. He said, you got me 6 weekends. I need weekends up until as far as you can get them. He said, this thing is selling out. I don't, you know, I'm like, oh, okay.
When we did the first Carmelitas, right? That was
Mhm.
Stephen Wright. Do you remember Stephen Wright? He was a
Yes.
television commercial director.
Yeah.
And we had done these commercials for him. I don't know, it was something. And he asked if we would do Tony and Tina as his engagement party. And I said, yeah, we'll do it for your engagement party if you can buy us the space for the next night too, and we can do the show. And that next performance, we have been doing this other show, the Vicky Show. Do you remember this, Larry? And Stephen Holden from the New York Times did a huge weekend section article about, you know, AI and not bad AI, like our theater company and the show of the Vicky Show. And he said, look, if you do that wedding again, because he's like, what else are you working on? And I said, oh, we're working on this and this and this. He said, if you do that again, I'll give you Critics' Pick of the Week in the New York Times. And that's what I think the 6 weekends sold out like immediately. And then that, because Stephen came to that, that's why I was like, we have to do two performances so that Stephen can come. And remember,
Yeah.
like Alec Baldwin we got a bunch of our friends to come and kind of like
Brian
kind of
Dennehy, I
sexy
think, was
Brian Dennehy. Yeah, so it was
there.
just very cool to just kind of like it just exploded. Yeah. Yeah.
David Rothenberg, whoever got
Oh,
him hired,
he
that
was
was
great.
genius. The
Yeah.
guy knew how to work the New York press. And
Yeah.
here's this is a whole packet of every piece he got us in prior to the opening, during the opening. And then the reviews started coming in and it went berserk.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, man. I had no idea that would happen.
Yeah.
It was just such a labor of love when we started, just Nancy was like, we can do this. And I just was like, yeah, we're going to do it.
I
Yeah.
remember
And
we maxed out our credit cards, and then I borrowed $1,000
yeah,
from my parents. And then I remember my dad coming to the set. This is now back at American Legion, but my dad coming to that show. Do you remember that, Mark? And he came and he said, well, I guess if she can't have a real wedding, she can have a fake one. And I was like, oh my God, because everyone in my family was married. Of my 6 siblings, I was the only one, like even my little brother was married. So I was like, oh my God. But the cool thing that happened was, you know how I sent out all those invitations? Well, it's the day of the last, so we were only doing 2 performances. And I remember like my dad had come on the Friday night. So I think it was the Saturday. And I just felt like kind of a loser. Like I had just maxed out credit cards. I have to pay them back $1,000. What is this thing we're doing? Am I just sad that they don't have a wedding? I'm not married. I don't know what, but I was really blue. I owed my rent. And I was at my apartment on 80th Street, and there's a knock on the door, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be like the landlord going, where's the rent, whatever. And it's this giant bouquet of flowers. And I'm like, who sent me flowers? And I was like, oh, maybe my daddy felt bad, whatever. So I opened the card, and it says, wish we could be there. Love, Uncle Vinny, Robin, and Valerie Williams. And I'm like, Robin Williams? Do you remember this, Mark? At the time, I was obsessed with Robin Williams. I loved him. I thought he was amazing. So I thought my friends, I'm like, okay, who sent the flowers? So finally, I called the florist and like, yeah, Robin Williams just called those in. And that was like this I remember bringing the flowers to the theater and we were all like, oh my God, Robin Williams sent us flowers. And it was just that little thing of having someone really successful go, you know what, keep going. You got something here. It was just, that blew me away because out of all those invitations, a lot of them, some people didn't even respond. A lot of people said, obviously, no, but he took it a step further and sent us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is just a smattering. I saved all the papers too.
Oh
There's
my
all
God.
those. And
So amazing.
here is the People magazine.
Yeah.
The piece about Tony and Tina's wedding in it.
Was that when we went to LA? Because that was Rick
Wow.
Miramontes, the toast
Oh,
of
yeah.
Broadway. Rick Miramontes.
Well, this was
LA.
dated April 18, 1988.
So that was
And I have
that was
I have 3 perfect copies. I just went and picked up a bunch of copies at the newsstand in New York when it came out. And I'm like, okay. And then we had stories in Theater Week.
Yeah.
Oh
Peter
my
Fuller.
God, I forgot about that.
Details.
Yeah.
When Details was
This
being
is
published, that's a good
amazing.
piece.
Yeah.
The Nation reviewed us. Theater Week reviewed us. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
when I opened it,
Well,
I had this in my office and I'm like, well, what's in there? And I'm blown away. I mean, like, yeah, wow.
And during the time, not that we didn't read those, but we were so busy working on the show that we didn't really think about the press. I mean, we just kept moving forward.
It's also like we had this one main timeline. So everyone is cued off of that. But then that original company was amazing. And so they would come in and each of them would have their own individual timelines. So like it might be the papal blessing, but I know that I'm smoking a joint with this one over here, or I'm doing, and to have that all kind of come together. And I just remember being so proud of it because people used to come to the show. Like people would bring their friends and their friends would actually think it was a real wedding. And
Yeah.
that to me is like the highest.
Oh yeah.
I remember Steve Mickulin from LA Weekly wrote, the line between reality and fiction is so blurred that you don't know. And like that to me was everything. That no one was
Yeah.
over the top or like over the top Italians, because they really weren't all Italians. You know, it was really Long
Right.
Island people, like how I grew up, you know, and so that was just, oh, it was so great. Remember, we'd all talk after the show and go, oh, that bit, let's do that bit again. But it wasn't a bit, like it was just a moment that really helped
Yeah.
tell the world.
And it was hard to hold on to that secret in any other city that the show was the show. Because, you know, we wouldn't allow a marquee. We were like, no marquees
No.
outside. Nobody ever received a ticket. They just received a seat assignment when they came. You had to come up to Jim Hanna and his mustache and toupee.
One thing that Larry, I remember, said to me when we started working on it in '87 for the '88 opening in February, he was like, okay, all you characters that are like secondary, and I mean, there's Tony and Tina. Okay, then everybody else is filling out the rest. So the best man, okay, you got to find like a through line for yourself. You have to find a subplot. And I was like, okay, what could I do? Barry Wheeler. And I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to sell drugs. And that's where it began. And so it started off, you know, it got ridiculous after a while because we're all trying to keep ourselves, or for me, I'm trying to keep myself interested in the part. So I was doing stupid things. I'd bring in a case. And one time I brought a gun. I shouldn't have never done that. But at the beginning, it was very nuanced. And just one anecdote, please, if I may.
Yes.
One night, I see these three guys, they're in suits, you know, they're sitting at this corner table right before the bathrooms. They said, Barry. I come over and they go, hey, you know, we might need a little, you know. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Come on, let's go back to the bathroom. I'll give you a taste. I go back. All three of them come in behind me and they throw me up against the wall. Put your hands up, spread your legs. And all three badges come in front of me, NYPD. And I'm like, fuck. And I'm standing there and I'm like, oh, I swear to God, I was not scared. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I said, I hope they take me down to jail and I spend the night there. Would that be fucking great publicity? I'm just standing there. I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. And they're patting me down, you know, they're talking tough, you know, and they get the little packets out, you know, it's just like baby laxative. I don't know. And I had a bunch of joints, you know, that herbal mixture and shit. And you hear them. No. Yeah. Turn around. So I turn around like this. They put your hands down. And I'm like this. And they go, all right, let me tell you something. One guy gets right up in my face. See this? If I see this anymore tonight and you trying to sell to anybody else, I'm going to bust you. I'm going to take you right down. I'm going to book you. And I was like, okay, all right. Word of honor. I did something like that. Like, don't get smart with me.
Oh.
I knew they were playing. Now, you know, at the beginning, I didn't know. I was like, well, maybe they think there's some sort of a drug, you know, we're moving drugs through this show.
Right.
Because people say, oh, you got the best man. He's got coke. He's got weed. Because people would get drunk and then they'd smoke that weed and they go, oh, my God, this is unbelievable.
In LA, I remember Donna and Tina, the fabulous Liz Dennehy, we would go and smoke a joint at one point in the wedding, like behind the pillars where the band was. And all of a sudden, Carrie Fisher comes up and she's like, you're getting high without me? She's like, come on. And then she started, like, it was right when she was divorcing Paul Simon. It was so cool. But the idea for Barry, this is so funny. the wedding, that Barbara Herzog wedding when she was in the bathroom, snorting the blow. At her wedding, there was a guy with a black t-shirt and a suit jacket, a black suit jacket, but on the t-shirt was a snowflake. So you knew you could get your blow from him.
Oh
This is
my God.
my girlfriend's wedding. I'm like, oh my God. But it was crazy.
Yeah, well, in the reception line at the church, I'd be standing there like this. And in the church, I did it a few times. I'm like, okay, that's the tip off. And so people are watching all of us, they're scrutinizing us. And I kept doing this. I'm trying not to overdo it, just play it, so that they get,
Yeah.
Yeah. Tina's first gift to her bridesmaids, like, how like brides will give a little gift to her bridesmaids. Tina's were little gold nails with a little diamond chip in them. Like
poke spoons.
Blow, it'd be easier to blow.
It's really fascinating how during the course of the time that we've been doing Tony Tina's wedding, it's been running, is that drugs were cool, then they weren't.
Yeah.
Then they're cool again. I'm not sure what they are now, but it really went through, because it was very, like, it was cool then. It was like everybody was high, and when you could smoke a joint on the street.
Yeah. So those guys let me out of the bathroom. They were cops. And they sat down, and every time I passed their table, they're and I go, what? And they go, like that, all three of them. And then they start laughing. And, we were just playing off each other the whole night. It's a good example of how things went,
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, my wife, Chase, came to see it. And I know she talked to you, Nancy, because I didn't know her then. And she said, Nancy, I beg you, if there's ever a part I can play, I'll play anything. I have to be in this show. And she was a groundling, Groundlings East, and came out here and got into the West Company. So she was just smitten. Anyway.
I just was thinking about, remember Richie, the bartender?
Yeah.
Yes.
At this place at Vinnie Black's Coliseum up there. He was a bartender, and that was one of the deals. Like, I think for us to get the place, I mean, Joe could speak to this more than I, but I thought we had to have a real bartender back there.
Yeah.
He was at every show. He got so into it, and Tina loved Richie. And he was like, Tina, you gotta knock it. I remember him telling me, like, I had to stop drinking.
One of the things that I always wonder about is, especially in that beginning when you were first doing it, how many actors went from the first time you did it to the second time you did it?
From the
Eli?
original cast list here, Larry, here's who were in the very first 85 weekend. Then there was the 86 that Nancy talked about. And then we went from there to 88 when you directed it. But from the very first show, here's who made it to 88. Kevin Alexander, Tom Allen, James Altuner, Mark Campbell, Nancy, of course, Pat Cregan, Elizabeth Dennehy, Jack Friss, of course, Mark Nasser, Stu Varon, and Moira Wilson. Then the others we had to cast.
Yeah.
But there you go.
When Chris came in, my husband came in, he had the whole idea of expanding the Nunzio family. So he created the idea of the stripper girlfriend. That was all from him. And, the Animal Kingdom, his strip club, and having Johnny, like that whole he really fleshed that out. I remember
Yes,
that.
because that was a nothing character.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
But when he started, like, we both knew this place in Massapequa called the Manor East, and there was this guy named Joe Black, and he was such a gavone. And so Kevin, I was like, Joe Black, and Kevin was so funny.
Oh, Kevin was great. He nailed that character. Those jokes he would tell. Oh my God.
Do you remember? Because we took them all from from Pat Cooper, who was this like Italian to listen to his albums.
Pat Cooper, right.
And he came to the show because remember Randall Thropp creating, all the environments he created, because once we left the Legion Hall and we went to Carmelita's. We met him. Remember, we used to drive up to Spanish Harlem to get the wedding cake. And I remember
Yeah.
like Joanne Hastings and you and Juan were making food up in your place on the Upper West Side. And being in the van with the cake and afraid the cake was going to fall. And then Randall's like, I can make a cake. You know what I mean? And I was like, what? And he made that prop cake with the staircases. And then
Yes,
this
yes.
one little fake cake on top. And then we had sheet cakes. Or talk about Juan coming in, because the first weddings, it was just dresses I had from being bridesmaids. And Juan came in, and that whole red dress, like what Juan did is unbelievable. Talk about enhancing the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just
for sure.
Yeah, well,
For sure.
each step we were just able to put more polish on it and just create to really what exists today. And I mean, Mark and Nancy, who you have in front of you here, including Christy and a lot of other people, people have worked for years in this show.
Yeah,
And,
a lot longer
and
than
it
I
has,
did.
and it has really created an enormous family of people, which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this. I mean, I just don't think that either one of you understand how large the group of people is that has become family because of this play. It is enormous. I mean, Gret and Concetta, you can talk about that because, they're in your lives every day as well.
Yes, I mean, I have a daughter with Donnie Dolce. I mean, so it's an amazing thing. And honestly, I can credit you for my daughter's birth, because had you not created this world, I might not have ever met him, and certainly wouldn't have her. So thanks for that. The best
Yeah.
gift I've ever gotten. I'm going to get emotional. I wasn't expecting to say that. But anyway, I had a question about the improv of the whole piece. And it's really what makes this so different and so special by comparison to any other play that you could sort of pick up from Samuel French or anybody. And I want to ask you, what made you choose improv to base a show off of? I mean, were you just so confident in your own improv abilities, or your friends who were involved? Because it's such a factor you can't control.
Yeah. Well, if you're with really good actors, you can. Like
Right.
that's
Oh, sure. Yeah.
it was
Right.
because
You can
we
have
were
the
so.
trust there.
Do you remember we had this scientist? I don't know, remember his name, but he was very well respected, and he said, "Do you understand that what you're doing is you're creating an M field?" And he said, like, you're bringing 200, 300 people into your environment, but because there's 20 of you and your minds are all melded together with believing in the reality of this fake world that you're creating, that the power of that pulls people in and they are able to escape and just play with it. And that's not to say that you didn't have people who would try to but you became impenetrable. You're just like, fuck off, you dick. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't give them any
Yes.
energy. But I remember one night, do you remember this? This was at Vinnie Black's above Gus's. And there were these girls, and they were very like BBQ, very Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens. And they're like, Tina, Tina. And like, I remember like when Tina's vomiting over the stairs and, Donna's holding my hair. And they were really upset. Like, are you fucking all right? And I'm like, I'm just so wasted, this whole thing. And then after the show, they waited for me. And it was almost like they felt a little betrayed because I was like, hey, thanks for coming. And they're like, Tina? Like, and you're just like, wow, like that's really cool that they
Yeah.
have escaped so
Yeah.
fully. I also want to say, I do want to give a shout out. My husband Chris really spent a very long time working on putting the Sam French book together.
Yeah.
Because we talked about like there was the timeline, and every company puts their own stamp and mark on it. And I think that's what I love about it, because it takes on its own life and its own relationships. Like there's things that I did with my Donna or that I did with Joey that if it was a funny line and if there's a way to make it work, that's great. But it's like you take this essence, you take this world, you have this sort of, it's not even a script, right? It's like a ground plan. And you take it, and then off of that foundation, you build. Because when we first, Larry, when we were doing other productions, it was like the orally transmitted teachings. And then it was like, we've got to write this down in some way that it makes sense and that it doesn't lock actors into having to do everything exactly the same,
Yeah, several different people have talked about those character sketches and how much they meant to them to be able to have those. Because really, if you understood those, then your character could follow through all of the other paths. It wasn't the arc, but it gave you the essence of how you could get from one beat to another by holding on to those characteristics.
Wait, were you just talking to Chase, Mark Campbell?
Yeah, I just waved her off.
I want to see her.
Don't wave her off.
Oh, she already did her segment.
Get your wife.
Dinner
I think the thing about that is any actor who's thinking about doing this show, so you get a character breakdown and then there's this like weird ass timeline kind of beat thing. That's one thing, but it's not for everybody. So Chasey.
Hi, Chase.
But I think it became like with this one, like just being on stage with Chase, it would just be so fun and so real. And it's not like you're like, someone give me a number and someone tell me about something. And it's just like you just 100% commit.
Concetta,
Yeah.
you asked about the improv element. One thing was that there were so many characters, and it was like, okay, Nancy and I could only think this out just so far, like what you're going to be doing between this and this. So you got to find some business.
Mhm.
You've got to find an arc. You got to find something you can play. So that's what everybody's mission was. That's why I got in. Okay, so I'm going to be dealing and wheeling and dealing with these people. One night there was this reporter, this woman from a downtown like publication in Manhattan. And she started playing around with me like, hey, I know you're dealing drugs and I'm going to publish this. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a wedding. We're all having fun here. Like, why would you do that? And so that's how it started. So eventually I said, hey, you know what? Keep that out of your, whatever this thing you're writing. And you and I'll have some fun afterwards. And I get done with the show. I come out on the street and she's waiting for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Oops.
hi. She's like, hi.
Did what you had to do, Mark, for the show.
I'm like,
the team.
I'm sorry. That was all, we were improvising. We were having fun. She didn't see it that way. So, but I remember that. I was like, oh, wow, man, this thing, it's real for people.
Amazing times.
Yeah.
One of the things I also wanted to say, when we were talking about how the show, the Enfield with this scientist, because I remember that person talking about this, that became interrupted by social media and by people having phones.
Yeah.
Because there was this direct, maybe for 10 years or 20, I don't even know how long, but there was a time when a few people had phones. Remember that big ass phone rang in Los Angeles and Susan Varen was like, what? Huh? Yeah. What? What is
Phones were
going
like this
on?
big. They were like these.
Yeah.
The phone really was huge. But once social media and the phones came in, people began to watch the play through their phones, of course, because they were recording it, but they also were like calling their friends around the world saying, hey, I'm at this crazy wedding and you just got to see this. And the energy kind of just dispersed a little bit. But really in that beginning, I remember that Juan's father, Servando, would come to see the show and he would just be standing in the middle of the dance floor. And they were dancing all around him. And I went over to him with Juan and I said, what is he saying? And he said, I'm inside of a movie.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm inside of a movie. And, really that beginning, creating a piece of art is a very big term. But we never thought of it that way, but it really was. That original production, the way we thought for it, it became our everything. And to find details that it's all we thought about.
Yeah. Do you remember when the Disney Imagineers came?
Yeah.
And they wanted to meet with us and they said, this show is like an e-ticket ride. They used to have tickets at Disneyland and the best rides were the e-ticket rides. It's all about that world building, So again, shout out to Juan and to Randall Thropp, our brilliant designers, because they created, of course, the company was insanely talented and insanely committed to each other. But having all of that detail that Juan and Randall created just made it such a fun world to escape into and just play.
Juan had it down to, I mean, everybody had their own scent. So, you had Mrs. There was a cologne that she wore. What was it, Juan? Giorgio. Okay, so Mrs. Vitale, like Giorgio.
Tina was
That's so
Cody.
great.
Tina was Cody.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
Lamont by Cody, because that was the perfume my mother wore.
Oh,
And
my
I
God.
in my drawer, I had the bottle, but not anymore. But I just saved it because I remember when she would go away, I would smell it and it smelled like her. So I was like, yeah, and it's called Loving. Don't you remember that, Wani? I was like, it's called Loving, Lamont, Loving. That was so important for her wedding scent.
That's so great.
God.
I had a question about like a really special magical moment that happens during the show that sometimes doesn't happen depending on what space you're in, but it's the walk from church to the space. We've talked about it before about how like the setup of the reception and getting to know characters on that first personal level outside of the church kind of begins on that walk, and the insanity that also starts to just snowball happens on that walk. Now, was that something that was done out of necessity in the beginning, or was that done with intention?
Absolutely necessity. Absolutely.
Okay.
Total and complete.
It's brilliant.
And then we got what was the church that we used?
Washington Square.
No, after, because we lost Washington Square.
Yeah, then we were over
Six.
on, we went back to the
By Village Cigar.
west of 6th to this new place. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Not St.
I
Louis,
remember
that's-
getting that Methodist church in Washington Square Church. They were the first church that, like I said, look, it's a play, but they were doing all sorts of crazy theater there, and they were so nice to us. And that's when we made even more of the felt banners. Jack, remember, had Walking in Your Footsteps, because it was that Sting song. Jack was really into that. But that walk from that church it's just like a block and a half, 2 blocks, but it was so fun. And then what started happening was storekeepers would come out,
Yeah.
honk their horns, and then it was crazy because it was like the M Field now spills into the streets of Manhattan, now goes into Vinnie
The
Black.
Queens and the gay bar across the street. Those Queens.
Monster. Well, that was when we were at the other church, because you want to hear the craziest story.
Right.
So we would walk from Vinnie Black's in character over to the church. And I remember because Tina would always have a cigarette, and I would go into Monster Bar, and Monster, they had a giant bowl of condoms, and I'm like, I'm gonna need these party favors. I would just go in, and like they were like, they all knew me. So anyway, smash cut. I'm now out here, and I'm teaching high school, and I'm a theater teacher, and so I needed to call one of the theater companies and get rights. And so I'm trying really hard to get the rights to Something Rotten, and we were the first school to do this production. It was very big deal. And I think one of the main reasons was I'm talking on the phone, and this guy goes, Tina?
Oh, no.
What?
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, who's this? He was the bartender at the Monster, and he remembered me. And he was like super helpful to me.
We've been on here an hour, a little over an hour.
Well,
And-
I still have so many questions.
well, I just wanted to say, when we got done with the ceremony at Washington Square Church, we get into that panel station wagon.
Oh God, the white one.
And we would drive
Yeah.
West 4th, make a right on 6th Avenue, and go up the street 2 blocks, 3 blocks. And 6th Avenue was lined with people. They had it, they knew the timing. They're going to come here. They'll be here at 7:35 or whatever. And they were waiting.
Wow.
And I'd be driving.
Oh, that's right.
I'd have the window down, I'd be like, arm out the window. Yeah.
With a boombox, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
because Tina was so pissed because Nunzio was supposed to get a limo, and he didn't get a limo.
Exactly. And these bunch of goombas driving up 6th Avenue, Tina, Tony, it's like every night, and the whole wedding party is
So
inside
great.
there, Chase would be in there, everybody, that was hilarious.
So much fun.
Oh my God.
But please, I want to be able to have you guys on, and I want to be able to pick this up, and I want to be able to talk about transition from New York to Los Angeles. I just really want to say thank you very much for being here. And let's call this part 1, and let's hope that there are like 10 parts, okay?
Yeah, well, I'll have you get in touch with my agent. We'll work out some terms.
Great.
Chase will call you.
All right, my darlings, this was really fun.
Yeah, very nice to meet everybody.
So nice.
Yes,
Thank
nice
you.
to meet you
doing
all.
it.
Tony and Tina's Wedding Creating a Theater Tribe is a production of Virtual Arts. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to join in the conversation and check out photos and archival material related to the episodes. Join us next time for our conversation with the original Tony, Mark Nasser.